India and Australia are two very similar nations. They both have great foods and were part of a particular tea-loving empire, which is why the political systems are so similar. I mean, from the empire part, not the foods. Due to both nations having British origins, they both share the same beliefs in how the country should be run. Think of it this way. Britain is like a mother who raises her children and teaches them particular values and beliefs. The children nations then proceed to also believe in these values, rather than other beliefs, because they grew up believing it was the correct way for a nation to be run, and are good, respectful children who don't run away to different parents. It is this origin from Britain which set the baseline for how the democracies should be run, along with some minor changes to better suit the individual nations. Australia's constitution outlines that the way that Australia's government is structured involves the power being separated into three sections: the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. The legislative branch is split into two houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate. The House of Representatives consists of 151 members, which are elected directly from the people and represent their individual electorates, each being approximately equal in population. The Senate, on the other hand, is half the size of the lower house, and is also elected directly by the people. The seats, however, are divided by states, with each state getting 12 representatives and each territory only getting 2. In India, the legislative branch looks very similar, as it also consists of two houses, the green one and the red one, I'm not going to try to pronounce them, which also decided to choose Christmas colours for some reason, along with the green house having over twice as many people. While the lower house is voted for directly by the people, the upper house is not, and the members are voted in by the people in the Legislative Assembly. Basically, the people vote for the politicians who vote for more politicians. Moving on to the executive branch. Australia has a queen. No, not that one. Who has basically no power other than having the job of standing around and looking important. Because the queen is too far away and most likely doesn't want to govern a country that isn't even her own. The Governor-General represents her in Australia. Appointed by the Prime Minister, he is the Commander-in-Chief of the Defence Force, passes laws, and has the power to dissolve both houses of Parliament. In India, there is no Governor-General, but instead there is a President, as they are a republic and do not have a monarch. The President has the ability to redeem emergency power in case of, well, an emergency, and can also dissolve one of the two houses, the lower house, calling for an election. Funnily enough, while in Australia the Prime Minister elects the Governor-General, in India the President elects the Prime Minister, meaning the power in this sense is reversed. Well, mostly. The point of all of these separate divisions within the government is to make sure that the power is never controlled by one single person or party. Of the two, Australia is arguably more democratic than India, as the citizens vote directly for both the upper and lower house, while in India, only the lower house is voted for. However, compared to a dictatorship or a one-party state, both democracies are much more, well, democratic. In fact, the entire structure of democracy seen in these two nations has the goal of preventing a dictatorship from ever happening, and ensuring the power remains within the people. Both nations value very similar things, such as elections, rule of law, and freedoms of assembly, speech, expression, and religion, ensuring justice and equality for all. This too is due to the fact that they are both democratic and both originate from the British Empire. When it comes to other impactful countries in nearby regions, the People's Republic of China cannot be ignored. Despite having a vastly different ideology, China is Australia's largest trading partner and allows for cheap production of manufactured goods, while Australia possesses many of the necessary raw resources to produce these goods, such as iron ore and coal. Previously, these two nations held close relations with one another, signing a free trade agreement and having very few disputes. In recent years, however, these two nations have fallen out, and tensions have arisen. This is due to China's wolf warrior mentality, leading to more open, controversial thoughts and actions against other nations. This struck Australia when they questioned the origins of COVID-19, followed by a request for an investigation on the outbreak. China, in retaliation, added an unofficial embargo on Australian coal, and a 220% tariff on Australian wine. This drifting between the two nations is further seen within Australia's latest deal with the US, securing nuclear-powered submarines, proving Australia is moving away from China and instead moving closer to the United States. China is the second largest trade partner of India, with India exporting items such as iron ore, cotton, and other raw materials in return for manufactured goods. However, with China at their border, the possibility of border disputes arises, which is exactly what happened. In June 2020, conflict broke out between Chinese and Indian forces in a region where conventional arms weapons are prohibited, meaning the soldiers brawled with clubs and rocks. This led to the tragic deaths of 20 Indian soldiers and 4 Chinese soldiers. Due to these recent tensions, along with the threat of China on their border, India too has become closer to the United States, making them their largest trade partner, overtaking China just this year. This conflict between China and the democracies of India and Australia is a perfect example of the rivalry and differences between free, democratic nations and dictatorial, totalitarian, one-party states. India and Australia both value the same rights and freedoms for individuals, and they both allow for the people to run the nation through democratic voting along with the separation of powers, preventing any singular group from having all of the power. It are these features that outline the similarities between the way India and Australia are run, and their placement within the global community displays the key values of the two nations.